Welcome to Leadership Unfiltered, the podcast where real leaders get real about what it takes to succeed in today's fast-paced corporate world. I'm Dr. Dayan Douse, founder and president of P.R.I.D.E Consulting, a human behavior and development company serving as an executive coach and facilitator, working with organizations to deliver practical ways to evolve teams, advance organizations, and transform cultures. I hold a PhD in organization and management with over 2 decades of leadership experience in Fortune 500 companies. And I'm best-selling co-author of the book, Nothing But Net. I'm joined by my co-host, Phillip Smith. Phillip is a seasoned technology executive with extensive experience leading large-scale engineering teams and driving digital transformation. Over his 25 years of leadership experience, he has held multiple roles from supervisor to vice president. His personal brand is coder by blood, architect by trade, and leader by choice. Every episode will deliver real-world strategies, unfiltered advice, and the tools you'll need to take your leadership to the next level. Let's get started.
Thank you, Dan, for starting the timer for us. Today, we're going to talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Hot topic right now.
Yes, it is. 2 African American men, and as a member of the LGBTQ plus community myself, this is a topic that's very dear to both of us.
Yes.
But we're not going to just talk about DEI as a general topic, but what does it mean from a leadership perspective?
Yes.
How do you lead with that in the environment as a hot topic, as a way of leading? How does that fit into the role of leader? There's a couple of things for me, which is I think DEI is really important. What's more important for me is belonging. Yes. Creating belonging is so important to having a fully engaged team. And belonging is really about being able to be your authentic self safely, without repercussion, in your team. And so while diversity from a demographics perspective is very important, and that cuts across physical and non-physical attributes and characteristics. Having diversity is very important, just making sure that you've got a well-rounded source of information that's being pulled for your team. Equity is important to make sure that, again, not equal.
Yes.
Equal is different.
Key distinction.
But equitable, that the resources are being distributed and the rewards are being distributed equitably, which is different also than it being fair.
Yes.
And inclusion, which is making sure everyone has an invitation. But those 3 things together do not equate or create belonging.
Right.
That is the leader's role. The leader's role is to say, yes, I'm going to make sure I have a diverse team. Yes, I'm going to allocate resources and the rewards of their work equitably. And yes, I'm going to make sure that everyone is invited. In addition to that, I'm going to make sure, because you get what you reward and recognize, and fundamentally, you definitely get what you tolerate.
Yes. And
so when people bring their authentic selves to you, how do you react as a leader? Because that is what creates belonging, and it will trump the rest of it. There's 2 things that have happened that have shaped my leadership from a leadership perspective. One was having a conversation about dog whistles, and it was fascinating how that concept, which I am deeply aware of, most of my team had never heard the concept before. And the conversation that came out of a conversation and educating them about what a dog whistle is, and giving them examples of dog whistles, really shaped me. It opened my eyes that my lived experience is definitely not my team's lived experience. The second was some feedback that I received. So I have a coach, and she was observing me with my team, and I strive and pride myself on creating belonging and valuing DE&I just intrinsically, not because there's a program out there, but because I believe that that's how we create a successful win for ourselves and for our customers.
Yes.
And she said, do you realize that whenever you ask a question, you always go to the men first? It hurt my soul. It hurt my soul.
That's good. That's good coaching.
To hear it.
Yes.
And then I played it back and I went, oh, I do that. And it wasn't intentional, it wasn't, but she brought it to my attention. It's like, yeah, you do that. And I was like, wow, with the best of intentions around trying to create this great environment, I fell short.
Yes.
And that is also said, that is what really solidified that intention does not equate to impact. And so while I absolutely had a great intention, the impact that I had on the females on my team was striking, and I was blind to it, and they were not. Because I went back and asked. It's like, hey, have you noticed this? Oh, yeah, we noticed this. The key thing is they didn't feel safe enough to tell me. And so I'm like, what do I need to do and shift and change to create not just safety about the work that we do, but the safety around how we do the work that we do that I am responsible for them to be able to come and talk to me. Those two just really shaped how I approach as a leader DEI.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Go back. You had a question for
me. Yeah.
You talked about dog whistles.
Yes.
Describe for the audience what that is, because I'm not sure everybody still knows what that is, what that looks like, feels like, sounds like. Can you describe that?
I can, and so thank you, because it's so close to me. So thank you for pulling that out. So fundamentally, a dog whistle, in reality, a dog whistle is you blow a whistle that has such a high frequency that humans can't hear it, but the dogs can. And so it's metaphorically where someone will say or do something that to everyone else in the population goes completely unnoticed. But to the targeted oppressed group, it resonates.
Yes.
And it's really clear that you are different and you need to either comply, you need to yield, you need to be in your place.
Yes.
And so like a dog whistle, when we're having a conversation, I said, it's like when someone says to a woman they should smile more. And so, saying to someone that they should smile more, that seems innocuous to the larger population. But saying it to a woman is basically saying, one, how you look and how you present yourself is your most valuable asset, not what it is that you have to say. And it's also saying women should be subservient because you are here to service. And people who serve smile. And so it's a huge dog whistle. Another dog whistle I have had the privilege of challenging to a couple of executive teams is around gratitude. Yeah. Saying to a black person they should be grateful. And while saying to someone in general, you should be grateful, that seems like something you would generally say to someone, life is good, you should be grateful for all the great things that are around you. And it's true. But saying it to a black person, specifically a white person saying it to a black person, is a dog whistle. It's these things that, again, the larger population may be, and those are just two examples. There are many dog whistles. There's dog whistles around obesity. There's dog whistles around able-bodiedness. There are dog whistles around mental illness. There are dog whistles all around. And unless you attune yourself to that other person experience, you just won't pick it up.
Yes, that's good. That's excellent. This could be, as you started being African American in the DEI space, has its own, it's a topic of in and of itself and can be very emotional.
Yes.
But as a leader, I need to make sure, as you spoke about the environment and belonging, I need to step away from the emotion of DEI to be inclusive, to be able to be diverse, and to see where there's equity needed.
Yes.
Because as soon as I become emotional about it and put my own personal experiences into the DEI space, then it clouds my view and perspective of what other people, what my team needs. This isn't necessarily about me as a leader, but it's now opening myself up and being vulnerable to other people's experiences. Recently, coaching a C-suite executive, female, just kind of casually threw out, as a female in a room full of men, I often throw out a suggestion or a recommendation or an idea that is casually discarded. And then one of my male peers might say the same thing in a slightly different way, and they get patted on the back and congratulated, and that's a great idea. Or that female leader have to come across or say things more aggressive, and they get labeled as the B word. And their male colleague says something very similar, and they are a go-getter, and they are being aggressive and upfront. And her question to me as a coach was, I don't want to sound like I'm being petty or overthinking this, or maybe as a woman, it doesn't exist. And I stopped her. And I said, oh, but recognize that's real. Acknowledging that it's real doesn't make you the victim unless you decide I can't do anything about it. Now that you know and can say honestly that this is happening and it's real, the question I have for you as a coach is, what are you going to do? What do you do about this realization that I'm being overlooked, I'm not being heard, I'm not being included? These discussions aren't really diverse because no matter your race, women are part of DEI because of that very thing. That they're often overlooked, they're often not heard. And so our conversation is now ongoing to my honest coaching is sometimes you have to be the B. And be okay with that as long as you're doing it with the right intention and the right spirit. But don't shy away from being aggressive. And if they label you that way, that's okay. But you don't back off your position or your idea just because that's the ignorant label that's being cast on you. And so she's working through that piece of how and knowing when to be aggressive. Then I said, you also have to be honest with yourself and say, okay, maybe I was a little bit overboard and I was a B, right? And so it's just understanding those situations and knowing when. But as a leader, big takeaway was I have to create that environment and get my own emotion, especially as an African American who's been affected by some of the things that DEI was hoping to alleviate or help in society as a whole, but in corporations. And there's still a long way to go. I know a lot of companies are, deciding what they're going to do with their DEI initiatives and programs. And I don't think you can totally get rid of it. It may come back in a different form with a different name, but it's so necessary. Call it what you want. But there's research that shows the benefits of DEI and what that does to people's belonging to a company and what that means to your product or your service and to your customers. We'll see where it goes. I would ask everybody, all leaders, to take a step back if you're emotional about where we are today with DEI. Take a step back out of your emotions and figure out how to lead in an environment where you are still being inclusive and diverse and equitable, so that people feel like they belong and can come into that environment and just be their authentic self. You just get a better organization, you get a better product.
I agree. And I think what I would add to that is something that, some of the best DEI training that I've ever been through from a leadership perspective was put on by this older white gentlemen. And it was good. And so I went into the training going, okay, I have to do this. I gotta do this. And I go, I'm gonna sit here for these 2.5 days and listen to someone teach me how to be a more inclusive leader.
Yes.
I'm like, okay. It ended up being fantastic. Absolutely fantastic training. I learned a lot.
Yes.
Because my perspective was, this is going to be rote. This is going to be someone checking a box. And so I'm going to take a hot take here, and I'm going to go there, which is they're going to have this woman of color who has great lived experiences, but is not educated in DEI. But because she's a black woman, has the spot to teach us because of her lived experiences.
Yes.
Which does a disservice to all of DEI. Now, I'm not mad about folks, hey, if you can get that gig, get it. But it's important that you have someone who's qualified in order to do it. Yes. Now, I'm not saying all black women or women of color who teach DEI aren't qualified, because there's a ton out there that are.
100%.
But sometimes companies choose not the most qualified person to teach it, but the person who looks like they would be the most qualified to teach it. Which is a problem. Yes. Opened my eyes as this white guy came in, knew his stuff. And I was like, okay. Now, I have subsequently had some really great DEI training that has been done by men of color, women of color, all the above. But it forced me to open my eyes to go, because what happened in that room for the white men hadn't happened in any other room pre or post. Now, I've gotten a lot of learning, like I said, from all different types of folks that have taught DEI who have been qualified to do it.
Yes.
The only time I've been in a room where the white men got it was when it was taught by a white man.
Wow.
I couple that with a personal experience where I was pulled over driving while black in Georgia with my husband, who's white guy, police officer white. The exchange, I was driving. Now, my husband had never seen what happens to me as a black man getting pulled over. I know what to do. And he's watching me go through this change.
Yes.
And he's watching this play out. And so the officer walks up. The way my husband, from the passenger seat, checked the officer, because I hadn't done anything wrong. Yeah. But I was a black man driving a BMW in Georgia. But the way my husband, as a white man, checked another white man from the passenger seat, which I definitely would not have been able to do. Right. And I put those two together, and I realized that only privilege can teach privilege about privilege.
Yes. Speaking for the people in the back. Did you say it clear or too loud?
Only privilege can teach privilege about privilege. I agree that DEI is, even if you want to just label it belonging, if you don't like that label, that's fine.
Yes.
If your intention is to create a culture of that inside your leadership team, then you have to, again, give it to them in a way that they can receive it.
Yes.
And we are all human, and we can all think that everyone can deliver every message. But the reality is that it's just not how humans work. You need to make sure that the message and the messenger are tied to who it is you're trying to send this message to.
Yes.
It's important that that takes into consideration when we start talking about creating a program around making sure that you're creating a sense of belonging in an organization.
Yes, 100%. And you had me think about caring as a leader and
yes.
that message, right? That message, whoever it's delivered from, has to be from a place of caring. Because otherwise people will see right through it.
Mm-hmm.
I just recall being on a leadership team with my peers and really people being in a place of caring, being in a place of curiosity, and having at the start some very uncomfortable conversations in the spirit of DEI and belonging. The leader, wanted to create this environment. And so she was uncomfortable. I mean, she was okay with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so on our leadership agenda would be DEI. And so we'd have a topic every week. In the first probably 2 or 3 months, it would just be quiet. When the topic came up, you could tell people were uncomfortable. A little bit of curiosity would seep in, but no real conversations. As we kept going, she just kept it on. She's like, we're going to keep going, right? And we kept going. And little bit by little bit, people would chime in. They would start by asking questions. And ironically, I was the only African American at that time on the staff. And so I felt obligated in one way, and a lot of questions were kind of coming at me. And to your point, I became the default expert in DEI. It's like, well, this is DEI is a black thing anyway. So since we're gonna have a topic on this, and you black, you must have all the answers.
Somehow, lived experience equals expertise.
Yes. And I was like, well, first of all, I don't have all the answers, but the leader in me, through other experiences, had learned that I didn't have to have all the answers.
Yes.
And so I would just simply say to my peers and my boss, I don't know. I don't have that experience, but if we leave this on, let's go find out. Let's go find out together. Let's learn this together.
Yes.
Sure enough, as we continued, the questions directed at the black person on the staff then just became a question to the group. And other people started to answer. And I had an opportunity to learn and get other perspectives. And I remember a conversation around the Black National Anthem. And one of the people on the team said, thank you for sharing that there's a Black National Anthem. I didn't know that. But I feel like that's unpatriotic. And I said, I want to learn more. They said, well, it's unpatriotic to me that we have 2 national anthems, one for black people and one for everybody else. I said, that is excellent. I love the question. So we got to the point where people were no longer timid about asking questions. People didn't feel like the expertise came from one person on the staff. People began to learn together. And so the conversation started up. And we played it in the meeting so that everybody could hear it. We went through the words and said, well, first off, there's an actual name to the song. And it's not the Black National Anthem.
Yes.
Right? And so we talked about the name of the song. They were like, oh. And so it was that learning and it was that environment that was my best experience of a leader who had passion for the topic, knew what it could do for our group and for our company, was okay with being uncomfortable herself, right? You as a leader have to first be okay with being uncomfortable in order to provide that safety for everybody else. And then just staying with it, letting it mature on its own, letting people come to it on their own, letting the topics go whatever direction they went. And nobody, when we finally got rolling, everybody brought a topic. Everybody spoke out. Everybody was included. Nobody felt threatened. In the end. And we gave people grace to ask hard questions because they didn't know. They were honestly curious and wanted to know. And so people didn't take offense, and it just became a really beautiful part of the meeting that people just got to belong. I don't care what else happened in the rest of their day. In that meeting, in that moment, you just felt like everybody felt like they belonged because they could share and be a part of it and not have any judgment or feel threatened in any type of way. It's honestly one of the best teams I've ever worked on Not only because they were skilled individuals, and we had been together as a team for a long time, so we knew each other personally, but it was that sense of belonging that really helped us as a team. And the result of that was any problem that came to us individually, that comfort, that safety in the team allowed you. And it wasn't about DEI at that point, it was a technology issue that typically I would say, oh, I can't come to this meeting as the black man on the meeting and say, I don't know this, because they're going to be like, no, you didn't know that, right? I felt safe in that meeting. I felt like I belonged, and we solved problems together. So much so, and I'll close with this, that team got split up. And for weeks, months afterwards, I felt bad of that team splitting up. And I went and talked to somebody that we already went our separate ways. And we said, when we were leaving each other and going to different departments, that we're going to stay in touch. And that same leader that put that together said, no, y'all not. I know y'all think y'all going to stay in touch and, going to still be the same tight-knit team. She was like, lives are going to take over. And you're going to, not to say you won't still be friends, and you won't still collaborate and do things, but y'all talk every day. You're not going to do that going forward, right? And sure enough, we didn't. That split of that team felt like a bad breakup. And I felt it for weeks. And it took me talking to somebody that I saw after we went our separate ways into our different departments. And they said, I just don't feel good right now. And I was like, I don't either. What's going on? And I was like, it's the breakup. Like, we broke up. And it was such a good team. And we felt like we all belonged and had our roles and knew each other and could do these things. That's what DEI created, that sense of belonging for that team. That's one of my best experiences.
There is a grief to losing that. And what I think will be helpful for companies to understand and for leaders to understand is that when you get that magic that happens, when you create that sense of belonging, there's an uptick in engagement, there's an uptick in productivity, and there's an uptick in value delivered to the customer.
Yes.
So that's our time.
Yes.
Great conversation, Dan, about DEI, and we'll see you all next time.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to Leadership Unfiltered. We hope you have found value in our conversation and are ready to take action in your leadership journey. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. And don't forget to connect with us on social media for more leadership insights and resources. Until next time, keep leading with purpose.